Your phone is sitting quietly in your pocket. You are not on a call, you are not streaming. From the network's point of view, the radio link is closed. And yet, if someone calls you, the network still finds you. How? Here's the puzzle. The network does not track your exact position every second. That would drain your battery and flood the airwaves, so the phone stays silent for long stretches. But silence cannot last forever. If it did, the network would slowly lose confidence about where to page you. So when does a quiet phone speak up again? Not because you crossed every street corner, because a timer rings. That timer driven check in is called the Periodic Tracking Area Update Procedure. Today, we will walk the entire sequence the way the diagram does. From a released idle phone, through a temporary connection, through the NAS update messages, and back to quiet again. Picture the cellular world as a map of large neighborhoods, not pinpoint dots. Those neighborhoods are tracking areas. Your phone does not continuously report which lamppost it is near. It only needs the network to know which set of neighborhoods still makes sense for reaching it. Think of a traveler who does not send a live GPS stream. Instead, every so often, the traveler checks in at a desk and says, I am still in this part of the city, and here is my current travel identity. The desk may stamp a refreshed badge and hand back an updated list of districts where that badge is valid. That is the metaphor we will keep for the whole lecture. The phone is the traveler. The timer is the appointment on the calendar. The tracking area update is the check-in. And the temporary radio connection is just the hallway the traveler walks through to reach the desk, then leaves again. The diagram opens with a very specific trigger, timer T3412. While the UE is in ECM idle, it is watching that timer. When T3412 expires, the UE decides it is time for a periodic tracking area update. This is the first idea to get crystal clear. The procedure does not begin because the phone suddenly discovered a new street. It begins because a configured idle mode timer ran out. The expiry is a trigger for a procedure. The timer itself is not the location update. It is the alarm clock that says, check in now, so the network's reachability information does not go stale. In plain language, a quiet phone still keeps a calendar. When the calendar says the check-in window has arrived, the phone wakes the signaling path on purpose. Look at the starting conditions on the diagram. Before anything happens, the upper state bars show a released world. RRC is released. S1 signaling is released. The S1 bearer side is released as well, while the broader S5 bearer context can still be thought of as part of the deeper session picture the core maintains. The important teaching point is the resting state. The UE is reachable in principle, but it does not hold an active radio signaling connection just to stay known. That is why ECM idle and the released labels matter. They tell you the phone is conserving resources, so when T3412 expires, the UE cannot simply whisper a NAS message into a connection that is already gone. The path has been closed on purpose. The first real work of the procedure is therefore not the tracking area content itself. The first work is to reopen a temporary path. Watch the left side of the sequence come alive. The UE sends an RRC connection request. The access network answers with RRC connection setup. The UE finishes the handshake with RRC connection setup complete. 3 messages, 1 job. Open a radio control channel so higher layer NAS signaling has somewhere to travel. This is the hallway in our traveler metaphor. The desk has not stamped anything yet. No tracking area identity has been refreshed yet. The phone is only creating the short-lived corridor it needs in order to talk to the core. If you remember only one sentence from this chapter, make it this. The first job is to create a path. The tracking area message comes after that path exists. Why can't the UE skip this and blast the update immediately? Because in the released condition, there is no live RRC connection carrying signaling. NAS messages between the UE and the MME need transport. In the connected direction upward, that transport is rebuilt step by step. So the diagram is teaching a layered habit of mind. Radio resource control reappears first. Only then can the non-access stratum conversation ride across. Students often collapse the whole story into one blob called TAU. The sequence chart refuses that shortcut. It shows setup, then update, then teardown as three different chapters of the same visit. Hold that separation. It will make the rest of the diagram much easier to read. Now the actual check-in begins. The UE forms a TA2 request. That NAS message is carried upward. On the diagram, you see UL NAS transport, and then the initial UE message toward the core side. So the MME receives the tracking area update request. Notice the shape of the story. The radio path we just opened is now being used as a courier. The TAU request is the letter. UL NAS transport and the initial UE message are how that letter crosses organizational boundaries from the radio edge into the mobility management entity. This is still not a continuous location stream. It is one deliberate signaling exchange. I am performing a tracking area update, and here is the identity and area context you need in order to process it. Zoom into the request callout only now, because this is when the diagram itself zooms in. The tracking area update request is not an empty ping. It carries structure. You can see fields that orient the network. There is a TAU type telling what kind of update this is. There is the old GUTI, the globally unique temporary identity the UE has been using. There is the last visited TAI, the tracking area identity associated with where the UE was last meaningfully known in that sense. Do not overread this as a street-level GPS fix. The diagram frames the content around temporary identity and tracking area context. The UE is reintroducing itself with the credentials and area hints the MME needs, not narrating every meter it walked since the last conversation. Plain restatement. The request says who I think I am, what kind of update I am doing, and which tracking area context I am bringing with me. The network answers. The MME sends a TAU accept. On the way back down, the diagram shows DL information transfer, carrying that accept toward the UE over the radio path that is still open. This is the desk answering the traveler. The request went up, the accept comes down. The temporary hallway is still in use because the procedure is not finished until both sides have closed the logical handshake. A key annotation on the diagram matters here. The MME may give a new GUTI and a TAI list. May is doing real work in that sentence. Sometimes identity and area list are refreshed. The accept is where that refreshed paperwork can be delivered. Open the tracking area update accept callout. Visible pieces include an EPS update result, a GUTI, and a TAI list. The EPS update result is the network's plain answer to the attempt, how the update was handled. The GUTI, when provided, can replace or refresh the temporary identity the UE should use going forward. The TAI list tells the UE the set of tracking areas in which it can move without immediately needing another area update of the ordinary mobility kind. Here is the part that matters. The accept is not merely an acknowledgement tone. It can rewrite the UE's working map, new badge, new list of districts. After this moment, the phone's idle mode understanding of where it is allowed to roam quietly has been realigned with the core. You should now be able to see that the network has answered with the result of the update and, when needed, refreshed identity and area information. If the network assigned a new GUTI, the UE must confirm that it took the new identity on board. That confirmation is TAU complete, sent upward, with UL information transfer on the diagram carrying the NAS completion. This closes the NAS conversation cleanly. Request, accept, complete. It is a disciplined three-part pattern. Ask, answer, acknowledge when the answer changed something important. Even when students only remember the phrase tracking area update, the chart insists on this full NAS exchange. The procedure is not done at the instant the accept is written. It is done when the necessary completion has been signaled back. So both ends share the same understanding of identity state. Now the hallway can close. The diagram ends with UE context release command and UE context release complete. The lower state bars return toward released conditions. RRC released again, S1 signaling released again, bearer-related released states restored on the access side. This is the misconception to kill immediately. Completing a periodic update does not mean the UE must stay continuously connected. The whole point of the visit was to refresh reachability information, then go quiet again. So the traveler leaves the desk, walks back out of the hallway, and the building turns the lights down. The phone returns to ECM idle behavior with an updated understanding, waiting for the next genuine reason to signal, whether that is another timer, a real mobility event, or mobile terminated activity. Let us put the whole argument in a few clear sentences. Timer T3412 expires while the UE is idle. The UE reestablishes an RRC connection just long enough to talk. It sends a TAU request with identity and tracking area context, receives a TAU accept that may include a new GUTI and TAI list, sends TAU complete when needed, and then the network releases the temporary context so everyone can return to released states. Zoom out one level. This is periodic signaling, a design pattern that balances two pressures. The network must remain able to find the device. The device and the radio system must not pay the cost of a permanent live connection. The same style of reasoning opens a wider door. What other information could be refreshed periodically without keeping a device continuously connected? Wherever that question appears, identity, capabilities, policy, or reachability, you will recognize the same elegant compromise you just watched in the periodic tracking area update procedure. Before we finish, walk the swim lanes one more time with stricter eyes. Left to right, the story is always the same. Idle released bars on top, timer expiry on the UE, RRC request setup and setup complete, then the NAS path through UL NAS transport and initial UE message, then TAU accept down through DL information transfer, TAU complete up through UL information transfer, then context release command and complete, and finally released bars on the bottom. Every arrow is doing one of three jobs. Either it rebuilds the radio corridor, or it carries tracking area NAS content, or it tears the temporary UE context back down. If you can classify each message into those three jobs, the chart stops being a wall of labels and becomes a short play in three acts. Act 1, open the path. Act 2, exchange the update. Act 3, release the context. That is the entire periodic tracking area update procedure from first principles on the diagram.